It's a spring day in Boston, and the office of Dr. Joseph Warren is buzzing, not with patients, but a parade of visitors, bringing news of British military movements in the city.
Boston in April of 1775 is a pressure cooker. This is a small colonial city, only about 15,000, but suddenly they have 4,000 British soldiers in the city. But it's not the soldiers who are on edge, it's the colonists.
For the past year, Massachusetts suffered under what colonists call the Intolerable Acts, laws passed by Britain's Parliament as punishment for the Boston Tea Party. One of the acts requires colonists to house British troops.
People were sick and tired of being harassed by men in redcoats. What the British are doing will lead the colonies more and more down this path of defiance.
There is a feeling that the next step could well be revolution.
Dr. Joseph Warren doesn't just practice medicine in Boston, he also plays a central role in the Patriot cause. A member of the Sons of Liberty, a secret society formed to resist British rule, he became chairman of the Committee of Safety following the Boston Massacre.
This is a group of people who are being watchful, they are gathering information, and it puts Dr. Warren in party with people like John Hancock and Samuel Adams.
When the Sons of Liberty come to the attention of the British Crown, some of the leaders become wanted men. Sam Adams and John Hancock wind up fleeing Boston in order to avoid being captured and possibly put on trial by the British. When that happens, Dr. Warren becomes the de facto leader of the Sons of Liberty in Boston.
On April 18th, 1775, the vigilant Dr. Warren learns a fateful piece of information.
The British are planning to leave that very night to march first to Lexington, where they will arrest Adams and Hancock, and then they will continue on to Concord, where they will seize or destroy Patriot munitions. He knows that this could spell the end of the nascent Patriot movement. It demands action.
That raid begins moving forward during the pre-dawn darkness. Dr. Warren is aware that it has been set in motion, and he is therefore able to sound an alarm.
Warren quickly calls on one of his most trusted friends, Paul Revere. Now, Revere is a silversmith, but he's much more than that. He is a dispatch rider, and he is dispatched to ride to Lexington and then Concord to warn the Patriots. Another rider, William Dawes, is dispatched by a different route.
The route that Revere follows is first by boat, and he crosses the harbor, gets off the boat, climbs onto horseback, and then rides into the interior. This is Revere's famous midnight ride, sounding the alarm as he goes.
As soon as Revere and Dawes warn anyone in any town, that individual has the responsibility to notify the rest of the local inhabitants and send messengers to as many other towns or villages as possible.
Revere and Dawes are letting people know you've got to stand. Now's the time to stand. And people are answering the call.
Sometime after midnight, Revere is the first rider to arrive at the house in Lexington, where Adams and Hancock are staying.
As the story goes, a sentry posted outside the house yells down at him to stop making so much noise. And he responds, reportedly, that there's going to be a hell of a lot more noise soon because the British are coming.
Around 5 a.m. on April 19th, 1775, 700 members of the greatest fighting force in the world arrive at the Green to find the colonial militia standing in their way.
John Parker gives them these now famous words: stand your ground, don't fire unless fired upon, and if they mean to have a war, let it start here.
But the Americans can count. They know they're outnumbered 10-1. On the one hand, they don't really want to back down and be seen as easily intimidated. On the other hand, if violence breaks out, it will go very badly for them.
Suddenly, a single gunshot rings out.
And nobody knows where it comes from. And what happens next can best be described as a melee.
There's no doubt that first shot triggered a massive volley from the British troops. 8 Americans are killed in the volley. There are bullets flying through the air, and it's mass chaos and confusion.
That first gunshot would come to be known as the shot heard round the world.
No British soldiers are killed at Lexington. And so they decide to march on to Concord, where they meet a very different foe.
By the time the British get to Concord, around 2,000 militia have now descended upon Concord, angry. Now they've heard these rumors of bloodshed that happened in Lexington, and they're ready to fight.
There's a decisive and now famous engagement at the Old North Bridge at Concord that begins a process of driving the British back, withdrawing toward Lexington. On the British side, the casualties are 273 total. On the colonial side, the casualties are less than 100.
The fights at Lexington and Concord will become known as the first 2 battles in America's War of Independence. Dr. Joseph Warren's timely warning played a critical role in preparing the Patriot militia.
Without the tip, the British might have captured Adams and Hancock at Lexington. They might have destroyed the munitions cache at Concord. They would have, in so doing, gutted, at least temporarily, the Patriot movement. And so the question, of course, is about that tip, the most important piece of intelligence in American history. Where did it come from? Rumors swirl around the potential identity of the informant who gives Warren the information about British troop movements that night. Now, of course, to the British, this person would be a traitor. To the Patriots, this person is a hero.
There is a recognition that if the Patriots are going to prevail in this war, they're going to have to form a proper army. That leads to the creation of the Continental Army. George Washington is then subsequently chosen to command it, and he will lead it through the next 7 years of conflict that will ultimately end in a British surrender and American independence.
In 1788, 5 years after the war's end, the first history book about the American struggle for independence is published.
The Reverend William Gordon publishes an exhaustive, multi-volume account of the history of the Revolutionary War. And in that account, he refers to the informant who tipped off Warren. He refers to her tellingly as a daughter of liberty, suggesting that Warren's man on the inside was, in fact, a woman.
General Thomas Gage was a pretty no-nonsense commander. He was sent into Massachusetts to bring order. That was starting to spiral out of control with these Sons of Liberty. And so General Gage was sent in there to put them in their place.
Even in 1775, the British believed that General Thomas Gage, the man commanding all British forces in Boston, was betrayed by somebody close to him.
When Gordon's book was published, there was substantial speculation as to who the informant might be. But then a name emerged, Margaret Gage, wife of General Gage.
Mrs. Gage was born in New Jersey, and that may have given her some kind of leaning towards the American cause, even though she was married to a British officer.
She absolutely would have had access if she heard her husband discussing with other officers what they intended for Lexington and Concord. As Gage recalls, there were only a few people in that room who knew what he intended to do. They didn't even tell the soldiers.
Warren is a physician. He's treating people on both sides. That would give him unprecedented access to somebody like Gage and also to his wife. The evidence supporting this is entirely circumstantial, so we don't have a smoking gun pointing to Margaret Gage. But when you consider the strength of the circumstantial case here, that is that Dr. Warren had to be 100% sure. He had to have actual hard military intelligence that he could depend on.
Dr. Warren absolutely would have trusted the wife of General Gage. She may have given him other valuable information in the past that proved true. But the other part is, he would have known that her sharing that type of information could have been a very real risk for her.
Warren would have protected her as the source above and beyond all other sources because she was his direct line to what Gage was thinking. And Warren never betrays that. Warren never says who it is. And I think all that does is point us straight back at Margaret Gage as potentially being the source of the information.